My wife divorced me without knowing I was a millionaire. I, 38M, was married to my ex-wife, Lisa, 36F, for 7 years. We met in our mid-20s, fell in love fast, and got married within 2 years. I thought we had something solid, until she blindsided me with divorce papers. Lisa had always been concerned about financial stability. We lived in a modest home, I drove an old car, and we didn't go on extravagant vacations. She often complained about how our friends had better lives, how their husbands spoiled them with gifts, trips, and luxury. I tried to explain that I was saving for the future, that financial security was more important to me than keeping up appearances. She didn't buy it. One day, she sat me down and told me she was unhappy. That she couldn't live like this anymore. She wanted more, and she didn't see a future with me if we were going to scrape by for the rest of our lives. I was devastated, but I didn't fight it. If she thought I wasn't enough, then maybe she wasn't right for me. What she didn't know. I was a millionaire. See, about 10 years ago, before we even met, I started a small tech company. It took years of grinding, but eventually, it took off. I sold it just before we got married and quietly invested the money. I never told Lisa because I wanted a simple life, and I didn't want my worth to be tied to money. I kept my wealth low-key, living below my means because I believed in financial responsibility over flashy spending. Lisa thought I was just an average guy with an average salary. When she left, she took what little money was in our joint account and demanded a clean break. Since I had always kept my finances separate, there was nothing for her to take beyond what was in plain sight. She didn't ask for alimony, didn't push for a bigger settlement, she just wanted out. So, I let her go. Fast forward 2 years. I've moved on. Upgraded my life. Bought a beautiful house, a luxury car, and started dating again. I don't flaunt my wealth, but I also don't hide it anymore. That's when Lisa sees me. She accidentally ran into me at a high-end restaurant, looking shocked at how I was dressed, what I was driving. The next day, she messaged me, all friendly, asking how I'd been. Then came the invitations to catch up, the reminiscing about the good old days, the casual mentions of how she regretted how things ended. I wasn't rude, but I kept it short. Eventually, she came out with it, she wanted another chance. I laughed. Not to be cruel, but because it was surreal. She left thinking I wasn't good enough, and now that she saw the money, suddenly I was. I told her the truth. That I had been a millionaire the whole time. That she left me because she thought I was broke. That her leaving was the best thing that ever happened to me because it showed me who she really was. She was speechless. Then angry. Then crying. I wished her the best, paid for my meal, and left. I found a secret door in my new house. I should have left it locked. I bought my first house last month. It was a steal, 3 bedrooms, a finished basement, and a huge backyard, all for way less than the market price. The catch? The previous owner was an old man who had passed away, and the house had sat vacant for a couple of years. I didn't mind. It needed some work, but nothing major. At least, that's what I thought. About a week into moving in, I started hearing weird noises at night. Not creaks or pipes, this was different. It was a soft scratching sound, almost rhythmic, coming from somewhere inside the house. I checked everything, the attic, the basement, even the vents. Nothing. Then, one night, I was in the basement setting up my home office when I noticed something weird about one of the walls. The house was old, so I assumed it had quirks, but this was different. The paneling on one section didn't match the rest. When I knocked on it, it sounded hollow. I ran my fingers along the edges, and sure enough, there was a tiny seam. A hidden door. I hesitated. Every horror movie I've ever watched screamed at me not to open it. But I'm an idiot, so I did. Behind the panel was a narrow, dark passageway. It smelled damp, like old wood and something else I couldn't place. The tunnel led downward, deeper than the basement should have gone. My phone flashlight barely cut through the darkness, but I could see something at the bottom. Steps. Leading to another door. I should have turned back. But curiosity got the best of me. I went down. The deeper I went, the colder it got. The air felt heavier, and I swear I heard something breathing. When I reached the door, I saw deep scratch marks on the wood. Something had been trying to get out. That's when I heard it. A whisper. Not from behind the door. From the stairs. I spun around, my flashlight shaking. Nothing. But I felt something watching me. My body screamed at me to run, and for once, I listened. I bolted up the stairs, slamming the hidden door shut behind me. The scratching stopped that night. But sometimes, when I'm in the basement, I swear I can hear breathing behind the wall. I haven't opened the door since. And I don't plan to. My dog brought home a bone. I wish it had been a stick. I live in a small house near the woods, just me and my golden retriever, Max. Every morning, we go for a walk along the same trail, and every morning, Max finds something to carry home: sticks, pine cones, once even a half-eaten sandwich. It's his thing. Yesterday morning was no different. We were walking when Max suddenly darted into the trees, nose down, tail wagging. I called for him, but he didn't come back right away. When he finally trotted out, he had something in his mouth. A bone. At first, I thought it was from a deer. Hunters leave scraps sometimes. But when I got closer, my stomach dropped. It was too smooth. Too clean. And too human-looking. I took it from him and just stood there, staring. My brain screamed at me to leave, to pretend I never saw it, but I couldn't. Instead, I followed the direction Max had come from. About 20 feet in, I saw it. A shallow hole. The dirt had been disturbed recently, uneven and messy, like someone had tried to cover something in a hurry. I didn't want to look. But I did. There were more bones. I backed away so fast I tripped over a root. My heart was pounding. I grabbed Max and ran back home, locking the doors behind me like that would do anything. Then I called the police. They came within the hour. I led them to the site, my hands shaking the whole time. One officer went pale as soon as he saw the bones. They told me to leave, that this was now an active crime scene. That was yesterday. This morning, I woke up to find something on my porch. Another bone. And Max was still inside. I won the lottery. My family tried to take everything, but I was one step ahead. A month ago, my life changed forever. I won the lottery. Not just a little scratch-off, I'm talking a full-blown, life-changing jackpot, $85 million after taxes. At first, I didn't tell anyone. I knew how these stories went. People come out of the woodwork with their hands out, suddenly remembering how much they loved you. So, I took precautions. Hired a lawyer. Set up a trust. Changed my phone number. Then, my mistake, I told my family. I wasn't flashy about it. I didn't buy a mansion or a Ferrari. I just wanted to quietly help out my parents and siblings. But the moment the words left my mouth, I could see the shift in their eyes. My brother, who never even texted me on my birthday, suddenly wanted to grab lunch, to catch up. My sister, who hadn't spoken to me in years, started calling every day, dropping hints about how tough life had been for her. My parents, who I planned to help the most, suddenly had urgent financial issues that required a small $1 million loan. I wasn't surprised. I expected this. What I didn't expect was how far they were willing to go. It started small. My brother tried guilt-tripping me, saying, "Family takes care of each other. You have more than enough to share." My sister cried about how I was selfish for not paying off her debt. My parents straight up demanded I put money into their account, because they raised me, and I owed them. Then, things got worse. I caught my brother going through my mail, probably looking for bank statements. My sister tried to access my new phone plan by claiming I was mentally unstable and needed a conservatorship. My parents even had the audacity to call my lawyer, demanding to know exactly how much I had left. When I started ignoring them, they got desperate. One night, I came home to find my place trashed. Someone had broken in. My safe, where I kept important documents, was gone. My heart pounded as I checked my accounts. Nothing was missing, thanks to my lawyer's precautions, but that didn't matter. I knew who did it. My brother and sister denied everything, but they suddenly had new clothes, new furniture, and my sister conveniently paid off one of her credit cards. I told the police, but without evidence, there wasn't much they could do. So, I played my final card. I cut them off. Completely. I changed my lawyer. I moved states. I transferred everything into an anonymous trust. And as a final middle finger, I donated a chunk of money to a charity my sister hates. Last I heard, my brother was couch surfing, my sister was drowning in debt again, and my parents were still ranting about how ungrateful I was. Me? I'm on a beach, sipping a cocktail, enjoying the life they'll never get a cent of. My racist boss tried to ruin me, now I own his company. I never expected to become rich. I worked hard, kept my head down, and just wanted a fair shot. But life had other plans. For years, I worked at a corporate firm, one of the biggest in the city. I was one of the few black employees in my department, but I didn't mind. I was good at my job. I put in the hours, helped my team, and even trained new hires. But no matter how hard I worked, I kept getting passed over for promotions. At first, I told myself it was just bad luck. Then I started noticing things. White coworkers with less experience were getting raises. My ideas in meetings were ignored, until someone else repeated them. And my boss? He always had a fake smile but never missed a chance to undermine me. The final straw came when I trained a new guy, some fresh out of college kid, and 2 months later, they promoted him to the position I had been chasing for 3 years. I confronted my boss. I kept it professional, asked why I wasn't being considered. He smirked and said, "You just don't have the right fit for leadership." I knew exactly what he meant. That night, I did something I should have done a long time ago. I started documenting everything. Every racist microaggression. Every time he joked about how I must have gotten the job through diversity hiring. Every email where he downplayed my work. I talked to other employees, turns out, I wasn't the only one. Then, I got lucky. A client accidentally CC'd me in an email where my boss explicitly said he didn't want me representing the company because I was too urban and might scare off certain clients. That was it. I lawyered up. My attorney was a beast. We filed a lawsuit for racial discrimination, hostile work environment, and lost wages. HR scrambled, but it was too late, the paper trail was undeniable. The company tried to settle. My lawyer laughed in their faces. By the time it was over, they had to pay me millions. But the best part? My boss, the man who had spent years holding me back, was fired in disgrace. With the money, I did something poetic. I used part of it to start my own business. And guess what? A few years later, my company bought out my old firm. I didn't just get justice. I got the last laugh. My spoiled sister tried to take my house for her wedding, I got the last laugh. I never thought my own sister would try to screw me over, but here we are. I, 32M, bought my house 5 years ago. It's nothing massive, but it's nice, 3 bedrooms, a big backyard, and a gorgeous view of the lake. It's my pride and joy. I worked years to afford it. Enter my sister, Sarah, 29F. She's always been spoiled. Growing up, my parents gave her whatever she wanted while I had to earn everything. She threw tantrums when things didn't go her way, and instead of teaching her a lesson, my parents just gave in. Fast forward to now, she's getting married. And, of course, she wants a dream wedding. One day, she and my mom came over, all smiles and sweetness. That should have been my first red flag. Sarah started gushing about how perfect my house would be for her wedding. The backyard, the lake view, it was exactly what she wanted. I nodded along, assuming she was asking to rent it for the day. No big deal, right? Then she dropped the bomb. She didn't just want to use my house, she wanted me to move out for 2 months. Apparently, she and her fiancé wanted time to customize everything, bring in decorators, even remodel some parts of the backyard to fit their theme. I laughed, thinking it was a joke. It wasn't. She was dead serious. When I said no, she threw a fit, acting like I was ruining her big day. My mom chimed in, saying, "It's just a house. You can stay in a hotel for a while." No. Just no. Sarah screamed at me, called me selfish, and even had the audacity to say, "You're not even married. It's not like you need the house." I kicked them out. The next day, I started getting calls from family members. Apparently, Sarah had told everyone I was refusing to help her and forcing her to have a lesser wedding. My parents even said I should be grateful to have my home chosen for such an event. That's when I decided to get even. I sent out a mass text to the family group chat. Since Sarah wants my house so badly, I've decided to put it to good use. I'm renting it out as an exclusive wedding venue. Any bookings will start at $25,000 per weekend. Let me know if you're interested. The meltdown was glorious. Sarah lost her mind. My parents called me cruel. But guess what? Some distant relatives and friends of friends actually reached out about renting it for their weddings. Now, instead of getting my house for free, Sarah had to book a random venue. And I made an extra $25,000 that summer. Best decision ever. My neighbor's baby won't stop crying. But they don't have a baby. I moved into my apartment about 3 months ago. It's a decent place, cheap rent, close to work, and surprisingly quiet for a city complex. At least, it was quiet. About 2 weeks ago, I started hearing a baby crying in the apartment next to mine. At first, I didn't think much of it. Babies cry. But then I realized something odd. I'd never seen or heard any signs of a baby before. No toys, no stroller, no exhausted parents shuffling around the hallways. The crying happens every night, usually around 2 or 3 a.m. It's not a normal cry, either. It's strained. Wet, almost like it's coming through water or a thick layer of cloth. I finally worked up the courage to casually ask my neighbor, Mrs. Patel, about it. She's an older woman, mid-60s maybe, who lives alone. She gave me a confused look. A baby? There's no baby here, dear. I laughed awkwardly. Oh, I must have misheard. I just thought I heard a baby crying at night. Her expression changed. Just slightly. Her eyes darted toward her door before she forced a smile. You must be imagining things. That night, the crying was louder. This time, I pressed my ear against the wall. It sounded closer. No, it sounded like it was coming from inside my own apartment. I checked everywhere. The closets, under the bed, even the vents. Nothing. But the crying continued, echoing from the walls. I barely slept. The next day, I decided to knock on Mrs. Patel's door again. When she opened it, I noticed something I hadn't before. Her apartment was almost completely empty. No furniture, no decorations, just a single rocking chair in the middle of the room. And on the chair, an old baby blanket. Faded, frayed at the edges. Before I could say anything, she muttered, "Don't listen to it." Then she shut the door in my face. That night, the crying turned into laughter. And it was right outside my bedroom door. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. The laughter, thin, wheezy, wrong, went on for what felt like hours. Sometimes it was right outside my door. Sometimes it was in the walls. And once, just once, it was right beside my bed. At some point, it stopped. Silence stretched through my apartment, thick and suffocating. I wanted to believe it was over, that maybe I'd imagined everything. But then... tap. 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 A soft knocking at my bedroom door. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. My hands were shaking as I reached for the doorknob. I don't know why I opened it. Maybe I thought it was Mrs. Patel, maybe I just wanted to prove to myself there was nothing there. But there was something there. A small figure stood in the dark. Too short to be an adult, too still to be alive. The light from my phone barely touched it, but I saw enough. Sunken eyes. Skin too pale. A mouth stretched wide, too wide, in a grin. And in its tiny, bony hands, Mrs. Patel's baby blanket. It whispered something. A single word, raspy and breathless. "Mama." I slammed the door. I didn't sleep. I didn't breathe. I just sat there, listening as the laughter faded into soft, hiccuping sobs. By morning, it was gone. I packed my things and left that same day. I didn't even bother breaking my lease. Before I drove away, I saw Mrs. Patel standing in her doorway, watching me with that same sad smile. As I pulled out of the parking lot, I swear I saw the curtain in my old apartment shift. A small hand pressing against the glass. Waving goodbye.
I got pregnant as a freshman in high school, and no one knows the truth ***. I've never told anyone this, not even my closest friends. But it's been eating me alive for years. I was 14 when I found out I was pregnant. A freshman in high school. I didn't even realize it at first. I thought I was just stressed out, that my body was still adjusting to puberty. Then the morning sickness started. The exhaustion. The little changes that I tried so hard to ignore. I was terrified. I told my mom first. She cried. A lot. My dad didn't talk to me for a week. The school found out, of course, things like this spread fast. Some people were nice, but most weren't. I heard the whispers. The stares in the hallways. They all thought they knew what happened. That I was reckless. That I got drunk at some party and didn't use protection. Some people even called me a slut behind my back. But here's the thing, I never told anyone who the father was. And that's because, he was my teacher. I still remember the way it started. The small compliments. The extra attention. The innocent texts about school that slowly turned into something more. He made me feel special. Important. And when it finally happened, I was too young, too naive to realize how wrong it was. By the time I found out I was pregnant, he was already gone. Moved to another school. No one ever suspected him. I wasn't ready to be a mom. I knew that. My parents knew that. So I had the baby in secret, far away from my hometown. I never got to hold her. Never even got to see her before they took her away. I went back to school as if nothing had happened. Finished high school. Graduated college. Now, I have a normal life. A normal job. A boyfriend who loves me. But every year, around the same time, I think about her. About my daughter. I wonder if she looks like me. If she's happy. If she'll ever come looking for me one day. And I wonder if he ever thinks about what he did.
I delivered food to the wrong house. I shouldn't have knocked. I deliver food for extra cash. It's usually easy, pick up, drop off, repeat. But last night, something happened that I can't stop thinking about. It was almost midnight when I got my last order. A small house outside of town, tucked away down a narrow, wooded road. The instructions were weird: leave at the door. Do not knock. I pulled up and immediately got a bad feeling. The house looked abandoned. The windows were dark. The porch was covered in dust and dead leaves, like no one had stepped on it for years. I double-checked the address. It matched. Maybe they just didn't turn on their lights? I grabbed the bag and walked up the steps. The wood groaned under my feet. Something about the air felt heavy. Wrong. I should have just left the food. But for some reason, I knocked. The sound echoed. Loudly. Too loudly for a house that looked this empty. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, from inside. Thump. A single, heavy footstep. Then another. I took a step back. The door creaked open just an inch, and I swear to God, the air got colder. I couldn't see inside. It was pure darkness. But I could hear something. Breathing. Deep. Slow. Just on the other side. I forced out a nervous laugh. Your food's here. No response. Just breathing. And then, a whisper. Low. Raspy. You're not the usual one. I dropped the food and ran. When I got back to my car, I looked in the rearview mirror. The door was wide open now. And something, was standing in the doorway. Tall. Still. Watching me. I peeled out of there so fast I nearly drove into a ditch. When I checked the app, the order had disappeared. No history of it at all. The house? It doesn't even show up on Google Maps. I don't know what I delivered food to last night. But I know I'll never go back. I found a phone on the side of the road. Someone's still using it. I was driving home late last night when I saw something on the side of the road. At first, I thought it was just trash, but as I got closer, I realized it was a phone. A brand new iPhone, face down in the dirt. I pulled over, looked around, nothing but trees and an empty highway. No crashed car. No footprints. Just this phone, sitting there like someone had dropped it and disappeared. I picked it up. The screen was cracked but still on, stuck on a messaging app. There was one unread message. Don't turn around. A chill ran down my spine. My first thought was that someone was messing with me. I glanced in my rearview mirror. Nothing. The road behind me was empty. I looked back at the phone. Another message popped up. You're still looking, aren't you? I threw the phone in my car and sped off. When I got home, curiosity got the best of me. I turned the phone back on. No password. Just a black wallpaper and a single app, a chat with an unknown contact. New message. You brought it home. That was a mistake. My heart pounded. I typed back, who is this? 3 dots appeared. Typing. Then. Check your closet. I froze. The closet was right behind me. The door was slightly open. I didn't check. I grabbed my keys, got in my car, and drove straight to the nearest lake. I threw the phone as far as I could and didn't look back. When I got home, I forced myself to check the closet. Empty. But as I crawled into bed, my own phone buzzed on my nightstand. Unknown number, you shouldn't have done that.